It was 1910, just before the First World War, and a group of businessmen and preachers got together and decided to release a whole series of books called the Fundamentals, and then distribute them to every clergyman, every minister, every missionary, every Sunday school teacher in America. And these booklets were designed to lay out the most fundamental tenets of the Christian faith, the essential doctrines that everybody needs to care about if you're a Christian. And the doctrines that they listed, there were lots of booklets, but the most important doctrines that fundamentalists keyed in on were 5. One of them was the inerrancy of Scripture. Scripture is the perfect inspiration of God and creation of God. Secondly, the blood atonement, the virgin birth, the resurrection of Jesus, the premillennial return of Jesus in his second coming. And those were the 5 doctrines that fundamentalists were going to fight over and defend over the next century of American history. The interesting thing is what was not part of those 5 fundamentals. For example, the doctrine of the Trinity wasn't one of the 5 fundamentals. Amazing. The heart of Christianity for 17 centuries. The doctrine of salvation by faith through grace. You don't have to pay anybody any money to get an indulgence to go to heaven. That was at the core of the Protestant Reformation. It wasn't one of the fundamentals. None of the teachings of Jesus, none of his sayings, none of his requirements, none of his commandments during his lifetime, none of his example were part of those 5 fundamentals. Nowhere in the five fundamentals was Jesus quoted as saying that the only 2 commandments that really truly matter are love God with all of your heart, all your mind, all your soul, and love your neighbor as yourself. That wasn't a fundamental. So the question obviously is, what was driving that list? And the answer is, it was a battle between fundamentalists and people whom they thought of as liberals or modernists, and they weren't focusing on the true fundamentals. They were focusing on ways that they could win in an argument. And that's a really interesting point, I think.